to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
This One's Wife. Confessions of a Prince Finder. Why She Fails. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The vast majority of the people on this planet that now know about this One's Wife didn't know about her until she was involved with Prince Harry. You didn't know her because of the Tig. You didn't know her because of Suits. Because despite what her narcissism does with regard to a revision of history, it was a little-known cable television programme. Yes, it had its fans, but in the grand scheme of the Earth's populace, it was but a small drop in the ocean. Most people did not know who this One's Wife was. At that stage in her life, what was she able to offer? She was an actress. Not a particularly good one, not the worst one. She was an actress, and she was earning a reasonable living. She ran a blog. Better than some, not as good as others. It offered her freebies, provided her with some form of income. And I suppose it could be argued that she provided sex. Either in the context of utilising that through lashings of spicy poontang to draw men in and obtain help and favours from them, or quite possibly in a more formal setting, if the rumours are to be believed. Thus, her talent portfolio, if I could describe it as such, was actress, blogger, and sex provider. She wasn't known for being a brilliant speaker. She wasn't known for her talent at singing or dancing. She wasn't known for her entrepreneurial ability. She wasn't known for being a forensic and incisive interviewer. She wasn't known for being a political animal or campaigner. The three strings to her bow were actress, blogger, and sex provider. And then she ensnared a ginger prince. It might be argued that in the history of mint elevations, this was probably the largest elevation that had ever taken place. An unknown woman suddenly finds herself internationally famous, able to access wealth, privilege, and access to various institutions and support. Almost overnight, she's gone from unknown actress, blogger, and sex provider to very well-known fiancé of Ginger Prince and also sex provider. She lands in the royal family. It's a massive slice of fortune for her. All she then needs to do is behave herself, stay within the royal family, shake some hands, cut some ribbons, do some charity work. Yes, it can be laborious. Yes, it can be boring. But the trade-off is you'll never need to worry about money again. You get to live in lovely properties. You'll travel the world. It's all catered and paid for by other people. You won't really have to do a proper job. You'll get to meet interesting people. People will bow to you. People will use a title for you. You'll go to banquets. You'll get to dress up. Sure, opening a biscuit factory in Watford isn't the most exciting of gigs, but it's a small sacrifice for a life of wealth and privilege and fame. She could be the fairy tale princess that she's always dreamed of. Many people would say, you can either continue to slog away being a mediocre actress who might not get any more work because your contract at Suits is coming to an end, and your blog will only take you so far. Or, here you can join the royal family. You'll have to do some stuff which isn't that exciting, but overall, it's well worth it for the reasons that I've just explained. Most people would say, I will take that life of wealth and privilege, even if it means I have to listen to somebody drone on about the best way of rehealing a boot in a factory. But as we all know, this One's Wife wasn't able to do it. Her narcissism got her into that position. It couldn't keep her in that position. And she then decided, driven by her delusion and magical thinking, that because she wasn't able to change the royal family to do what she wanted, that with her newfound fame and influence and fans, that she would simply now head off, go somewhere else, leave the stuffy racist royal family behind, and she would forge a successful career as something. It didn't matter, because everybody would want to talk to her. Everybody would want to listen to her. She would have tales of the royal family. She would be able to wow people with her inherent magnetism and excitement. That she would be able to turn her hand to all manner of different things in order to earn huge amounts of money. Hell, she could just be paid for being her, for just turning up. This is what her narcissism told her. Now, there are plenty of other people on this planet that have made a fortune. They make millions. And thus, having done that and had their burst of fame, some of them retire. They decide, I've made loads of money, I've got a large house, I don't need to want for money, I don't need to keep doing what I was doing, I don't need to keep exercising that talent, I'm quite happy pottering around in my garden, bringing up a family, playing golf, whatever it might be. And thus, we don't really hear from them again. They don't bother anybody. Then there are those that, despite the fact that they're already hugely wealthy, they still enjoy doing what they do. So they continue to write yet more books. Take, for instance, J.K. Rowling. She is hugely wealthy off Harry Potter, but she continued to write. Take, for instance, bands like the Rolling Stones and Depeche Mode. Made plenty of money, but they've been going decades because they enjoy the creation of music, the making of albums, and going on tour. There are plenty of people that have got plenty of wealth, but they still do what they do because they are talented, and they've built up a fan base on that talent. So they keep going. There are others who perhaps semi-retire, and they dabble now and again in relation to what their talent is. Maybe doing a little bit of music here and there, a little bit of acting here and there. Perhaps helping with a new startup, having made a fortune in business. So they straddle both using their talent, but also embracing a degree of retirement. And then you get certain individuals who they look to try something new, but they do so using their money. They do so branching into another area, utilizing the wealth that they've accrued as a consequence of their talent. Sometimes it doesn't work, but all that they've done is waste their money, which they're allowed to do. Sometimes it does, that they suddenly find a new career, that you might have somebody, for instance, Gwyneth Paltrow is a good example of that. She was known for being an actress. Now she's known for being a businesswoman and running a lifestyle brand. She used her money to set it up, and it has become successful. She moved into something else, but she was utilizing her money. But what about this one's wife? She was moderately successful in the sense that she had a salary from Suits, a bit of money from her blog. She hit the jackpot with the royal family, and there she could stop. But she didn't, because her narcissism said, you can do more. First of all, she wasn't able to bolt on the institution that was the royal family, as I've explained previously, because of her narcissism. And instead, her level of delusion and sense of entitlement was such that she thought, I can do more. But the question then becomes, but how will you do more? With what? Being an actress? Being a blogger? Being a sex provider? No, not going to do any of those things. I'm famous, but also hugely talented. Are you? I can write books. That failed. I can be a philanthropist. Got bored. I can do the 40 by 40. Didn't go anywhere. I can be a brilliant content creator, except you're not. I'm a fantastic interviewer, except you're not. I'm a brilliant broadcaster, except you're not. I could be a model, except you're not. I could do stuff for the cosmetic giants, but they're not interested. She failed, and failed, and failed. And there are two fundamental reasons for this. One, her only talents are a degree of acting ability, running a blog, and being a sex provider. That's it. She is neither intelligent, charismatic, talented in any particular field. She's not a sports person. She's not a brilliant social commentator. She's not a writer. She's not a content creator. She's not a podcaster, a broadcaster, an interviewer. She is not a model. She is not somebody that could create interesting ideas for a lifestyle brand, pure innovative ideas rather than stealing them elsewhere. She has got nothing else in her locker. And she's unlikable. And she's become unlikable because of the way that she behaves as a narcissist and her overexposure. Now, there are certain people on this planet who are somewhat unlikable, but undeniably talented. So, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, the footballer, another narcissist. And you'll find him rather up himself and greedy and such like, but you cannot deny that he is an absolutely fantastic footballer who's looked after himself all of these years and is rightly one of the goats of football. You can't take that away from him. Therefore, he has talent. Then you get some people who aren't particularly talented, but people just like them. So, for instance, there are certain presenters, and there'll always be ones where you say, well, I don't like them. But on the whole, they're liked by people. Often you find reality stars that have made the crossover from reality television into perhaps presenting or broadcasting, that they're not that good at it, but they're passable, but they are likable. People find them warm and interesting and fun. And therefore, people give them a pass that they're not really a brilliant presenter or broadcaster, but they're entertaining and likable, so that's okay. So you'll either have talent and are likable, or you're talent, but that gets you through because people don't necessarily like you, or you're not that talented, but lots of people like you, so that's okay. But this doesn't apply to this one's wife, does it? She has no talent other than middling actress, blog runner, sex provider. And she certainly isn't popular. This is why she keeps failing. Allied with her narcissism, which keeps telling her, you are a brilliant broadcaster, podcaster, fashion icon, cosmetics giants, modeler, etc., etc. So she keeps trying and trying and trying. The astonishing thing with this one's wife is that she keeps being given these chances. No doubt, valuable viewer, you can point to people that you know about, perhaps on YouTube or their blogs, who actually have some talent in writing, in creating content which is really interesting, entertaining, or amusing, and they do not have anywhere near the level of fame, exposure, or wealth that this one's wife has obtained. That you have these individuals who really ought to have that platform, that they would bring something meaningful to millions of people, but they've never been afforded the opportunity that this one's wife has. And why did she get the opportunity? Simply because of the man that she married. If she hadn't married Harry, we wouldn't know about her. Because she was never going to become mega famous off the back of being a middling actress, blog provider, and sex provider. And thus, that's what catapulted her onto that international stage. But that's only going to take her so far. Because whilst there are some people who can be famous for being famous, for instance, the Kardashians, but they put it all out there with their reality television, warts and all, which made them entertaining even in a car crash way. And then that enabled them to branch into other things. And it might be argued that they have a knack, for instance, with regard to Kim Kardashian's product range. But with this one's wife, she hasn't even got that. She was catapulted to fame because of the man that she married. And then she hasn't been able to stay there because she's neither talent nor likability. And yet, despite being talent-free and despite being unlikable, and not in a pantomime villain way, which sometimes sustains interest, she continues to be given these chances where organisations readily spunk millions of dollars on her only for it to fail. This leads people to think What does she have on these organisations that causes them to behave this way? Well, some of it, of course, arose from the fact that when she first appeared, they thought she's going to have some interesting stories to tell. And she wasn't as unpopular back in 2020 as she is now. And therefore you could say, well, whilst there were concerns about her behaviour, they would probably think to themselves it was worth a gamble because she'd come with the juicy gossip. But then that didn't materialise, and there's nothing beyond that. Now, if this one's wife basically thought, well, I've made my millions, that's enough to live on, I will now retreat and just live a quiet life, you would say, fair enough. But she can't, because her narcissism won't let her do that. And instead, she continues to put herself in the public eye. But I would suggest that we may well be at a crossing the Rubicon moment. Yes, the Netflix series has been renewed, in inverted quotations, for a second season, which, as we know, is really just part 2 of season 1. But that's just Netflix seeing out their contractual obligations. And it really is questionable whether the 5-year deal will be extended beyond September 2025. The Lemonada deal was inked some time ago. It's not just come about now. And again, that's just the fulfillment of existing contractual relations, which may even be a couple of years old. She's got her As Ever lifestyle brand, but that's unlikely to go anywhere because it's shit. So beyond that, is there going to be anybody else queuing up to say, we'll throw some money at you? There might still be, but on a lower scale. And it may well be the case that rather than she disappears, there is this continued downward spiral as the gigs are less prestigious, the money offered is less than she's used to, but she has to take it because she has such significant outgoings. And therefore it might well be that at this point in time, no other big organisations, for instance, Apple, Disney, Amazon, they haven't expressed any interest in her. Indeed, they've distanced themselves from her. It might well be that once these current contractual obligations have been fulfilled, there's nothing on the table other than scraps. We shall have to see. Part of it is because she still remains talked about. And therefore, as Netflix has decided that they would continue with the second set of episodes, they know that the programme's shit, but it gets sufficient grudge watching that they think it's worth it, and there's plenty of coverage in the newspapers and so forth. It may well be the case that she's viewed as too troublesome and talent-free and has been exposed so that no major players will come forward. But so long as she generates some buzz, even if it's negative, this might coax certain individuals or organisations, albeit on a much lesser scale, to have an involvement with her. We shall see. But what is quite clear is that she has nothing to offer other than being an actress, a blogger, and a sex provider. That's it. She has no other talents. We have seen her try to do all of these other things, driven by her narcissism, causing her to believe that she is talented, that she is capable of all of these things, and we have seen her fail, and fail again. You probably have been scratching your head as to how can it be that this talentless, unlikable, unpopular woman keeps getting these chances. And I confess, one can see that it is somewhat baffling. Hitherto, one can understand that there was a bit of a gamble there, that it might mean that she suddenly turned things around and became popular and therefore was famous for famous sake, and she then joined the ranks of the not so talented but likeable, and that's how she then continued. But she's unlikable for the majority of people. Either that or they're just not interested in her. And whilst it is somewhat flummoxing to those of you in the know about her behaviour that she's continued to be given these opportunities, it might just now be the case that in terms of the big deals, they actually dry up and she's going to be scrabbling around for the smaller stuff. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens. But ultimately, she fails because she's no talent, she's unlikable, and her narcissism keeps thrusting her into our faces, continuing to demonstrate that she has no talent and that she's unlikable. And thus, that is why she fails. Do you agree with me that perhaps right now, when these contractual obligations in respect of Netflix and Lemonada have passed, and remember, Lemonada is something of a step down from Spotify, that no big players will come forward, that she really is a busted flush? Or do you think somehow that there will be another large organisation that decides they're going to take a punt on her and provide her with the big bucks? And if so, why do you think they're doing this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.